Hey, this is Skip from Roland Candle. I am talking about Says Pop, which is for the first time available on streaming services in the last 20 plus years that record's been around. We recorded that record in my parents' basement in 3 weeks in the fall of 2001. It was October, November, and it had started from some demos that we'd done. We were students at Chapel Hill, and Timshel and I had just graduated. Logan was still at Chapel Hill. Timshel and I moved out to Portland, Oregon. And this story is so weird that as many times as we have told it over the years, not that many people know it actually, probably, but it doesn't sound like a real story. So we had these demos we'd done in Chapel Hill. We put them in the record store, School Kids, which I think is still there, on consignment, and they sold, I think they sold over 300 copies, which is a really big deal for us at the time. Really excited about that. And we put our music, this is pre-MySpace, we put it on a thing called GarageBand.com. Had nothing, the Apple app, GarageBand wasn't even around at that point. And Timshel and I moved to Portland, Oregon. We got a job. I was working in a plumbing warehouse in North Portland. Timshel was washing dishes at an art college, which is no longer in business. And we were working first jobs sort of after graduating, and we lived in Portland. And I got an email one day from a guy named Trevor Price, who was a Pro Bowl NFL player. I didn't keep up with football that well at the time, and I did not. I didn't know who he was. So I assumed it was a third string kicker that sort of, had enough time and energy to email people about music. But he said, hey, I love this record, and I want to put it out on my label. I'm starting a label. So I Googled this guy. Again, this is 2001, so I might have Netscape navigatored this guy, and found out that he was a totally proper footballer. He had a DJ career. He would sign to London Records and all these things. And so I wrote him back and said, sure, give me a call. I didn't even have a cell phone at the time, so I said, you're gonna have to call me on my lunch break at this warehouse, Familia Northwest in Portland. And he did the next day. And so I got a call from my supervisor, hey, you got a call on line 2. I went in and talked to this guy, and he said, hey, I want you to take the demos that you've done, and I want you to go finish it as a record. I'm going to fly you back to your parents' house. I think I was making about $8 an hour in this warehouse. So I'm going to fly back to your parents' house and your wife and your brother. I need you guys to get there, and let's make a record in like 3 weeks. And he goes, and I'm going to finish my football season, and I'm going to fly out as soon as I get done, and we'll mix it together, and we'll put this thing out. And we thought, this sounds insane, but sure. I mean, I'm working at a warehouse. I was a hazmat certified and a forklift operator. And so he sent us, he said, I want to send you some proper gear to do this record with. And so he sent us, and we said, okay, great. We'd love to have whatever gear you'll send us. So I think back then he went to Guitar Center and just asked for a bunch of good stuff, and they shipped it to our house. And it was like stuff that we actually use to this day in Logan's studio. But we didn't really think any of this was real until all this stuff showed up on my parents' porch, and they sent us a photo, and they're like, hey, this just showed up as boxes of this Tube Tech and the LA2A and an 1176, all this kind of famous outboard gear. And so we went home and spent 3 weeks. We had this sort of budding independent record deal. Full transparency, I think we got paid $6,000 for the whole record deal. So that was it. It was that plus the gear was the advance. And so we spent 3 weeks making Says Pop. And like I said, we started with some of the demos that we'd had and some songs we'd written at UNC. And this record is the sound of us sort of swinging for the fence and trying to make a record that we hoped would sound somewhere between, if DJ Shadow had produced an Oasis record is what we had in mind. At the time, we had no idea really. Like we loved the Introducing DJ Shadow record. We didn't know that he didn't play that stuff. We thought he was actually playing a piano and playing the drums. We didn't know what sample-based music was, honestly. So we thought he was playing all that. And so we were trying to sort of recreate some similar feel, but in a much more, kind of heart-forward pop song setup. And so that's the sound of that record. It really is us in our basement. We set it all up. Timshel and I were working a little bit during the weekdays, and Logan would come home on like long weekends. and do all the drums and all this kind of stuff. And we recorded everything ourselves. We engineered everything ourselves. Logan is now a really incredible and successful engineer. But this was the beginning of all that. And yeah, that record was all of our best songs that we could put together, you know, in whatever format that we thought sounded exciting to us. And Trevor Price did finish a game. I think he was playing with the Broncos at the time, and they lost some game in the playoffs, and he flew straight from that game to our house in Wilkesboro. We picked him up in Charlotte. I think we ate at like an Outback Steakhouse or something like that on the ride home. And when we lived, my parents to this day live, you know, at the end of a dirt road. And it was probably a cultural shock for him. I'm sure he could comment on that. But, you know, we still keep in touch with Trevor. He's great. But in general, it was a hilarious experience. Like, Trevor slept in my parents' bed. My parents slept in our beds. And Logan and I didn't sleep. And Timshel slept on the couch for, you know, days and days on end. We mixed the record ourselves. It sounds like a mess. It's not a hi-fi experience. I love hi-fi stuff. This is something where it's all sort of passion forward and not hi-fi forward. Absolute opposite of a Steely Dan record, if you lean that way. But yeah, I hope that you enjoy this. We're glad to have it out.